What's going on, everybody? Castaneda here. Today's question, should pastors be doing premarital counseling?
This is my land, this is my city, and this is my flag. These are my people, man, this is my clan. We will not give it up to you, no, you cannot. This is my land, this is my city, and this is my flag. These are my people, man, this is my clan. We will not give it up to you, no, you cannot have.
Once again, I am Castaneda, here to bridge gaps and seek truth, and today's topic of discussion is a little controversial. I'm asking the question whether I think pastors should be doing premarital counseling. Now, really quick, I want to define premarital counseling. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's counseling that a couple gets before they get married, premarital. The idea is that a couple is wanting to talk about some important marital themes before they just lunge into marriage. Marriage is a lifelong commitment, and so they think, hey, it's important that we talk about like some basic, how are we going to interact with each other once we get married? And for the Christian, it's especially important because chances are the Christian has not lived with their partner before marriage. There are some that have. I'm not saying there haven't. I'm just saying most of the time a Christian is waiting until marriage to move in with someone. And so the need to get premarital counseling is like hyper-emphasized in those scenarios. And oftentimes Christians go to their pastors for premarital counseling. It's very common to see that. And my question is, should pastors be doing premarital counseling? And I think the question hinges on one answer. There's one caveat that's important. What type of counseling is taking place? So, for example, if a couple just wants like a casual interview, experience-based type talk with a leader in their church or their pastor, where they're just asking them, hey, you've been married for 20 years, you read the Bible and you understand the Bible and you're charged with teaching me the Bible. What's your opinion on marriage? What does the Bible say about marriage? What's your experience? What did you do your first year? All of that stuff, by all means, it makes perfect sense to go to someone like a church leader and ask those questions. And those conversations can be incredibly helpful because you're gaining experience from somebody, and wisdom comes from experience. I truly believe that. However, we have to make sure that we establish that that is not counseling. Like, counseling is something different. What that is more like elderly advice. Maybe they're not that much older than you, but just they're a couple stages ahead of you. Advice. They're giving you their own perspective and their own opinion. Counseling is not that, though. Counseling is not opinion giving. Counseling is the practice and art of using verbal interventions to help a client achieve wellness and achieve their goals. And Christian counseling is the same thing. It's still a verbal practice. You're still using words to intervene to help somebody with a problem for the purpose of helping them achieve wellness or achieve whatever goal they have. Hey, I'm trying to stop nail biting. Boom, there's a problem and a goal at once. I'm nail biting, that's a problem. Here's my goal, I want to stop. A counselor uses all the tools that they have to help this person achieve their goal. Counselors, very important, do not impute goals onto their clients. They do not decide what is best for the people coming to their office. Understand that. Even if the counselor believes something is better than what that client wants, by trying to impose their image of the perfect life for that client, they're basically telling that client, you need me to live. And that's antithetical to counseling. Counseling is trying to help people develop the tools they need to live without counselor. Our goal is to become obsolete. I am nearing the end of my graduate studies, and by the end of it, I will be a licensed mental health counselor. I am getting my degree in clinical mental health counseling. And so a lot of what I'm saying draws on my understanding of counseling and what I'm learning and how I've noticed many people misconceive counseling. The reason that pastoral counseling, in the sense that I described earlier, just a casual experience-based conversation, is not counseling is because counseling is like a profession. It's an art that requires techniques. You're trying to dive into many things as a counselor. The scope of practice for a counselor is very large. You're talking about family history dynamics. You're talking about facilitating here and now conversations, awareness of a person's multicultural factors. What kind of cultural elements play into this person's presenting problem? And when you're counseling a couple, now you're facilitating two people interacting. You're trying to understand the dynamics behind problematic behaviors. These things require learning. These things aren't just intuitively known. We don't just know why we do the things we do. There are ways we can learn why we do the things we do. In short, counseling is complex. There are a lot of complex factors to counseling. It's not as simple as just saying, I really like this person and I really want that person to do well. So I'm just going to devote all this loving energy to just telling that person all these good things. Oftentimes, no matter how much you love a person and no matter how many good things you tell that person, those aren't the things that help them. Think of somebody who's grieving. If somebody just lost a loved one, does it help that person to say, it's going to be okay, that person's in a better place now, or you're strong, you're going to be okay, God's got you. God upholds you. No. You see, they know all these things, but there's something psychologically and emotionally going on with them that requires a different type of intervention, that requires one to be present with them, to weep with those who weep. That empathy is not intuitively known. And the art of cultivating that empathy in a counseling setting is even harder to learn how to do. These are things you learn how to do. These are things that you learn how to do by studying counseling. And so counseling is not as simple as just giving a list of set truths and giving a list of advice. Because sometimes advice doesn't help. Sometimes what somebody needs is not advice, but to be given an opportunity to flesh out their thoughts. Some people don't even know the thoughts that they have that guide their actions. And if you, the facilitator, can't ever figure out these thoughts, if you, the facilitator, aren't trained to identify those thought patterns, how are you going to help them uncover blind spots? Likely you're not going to. So I think it's important to distinguish. If the scope of your counseling as a pastor is, I'm going to help this person understand what the Bible says about marriage, and I'm going to help this person understand some maybe potential pitfalls they might find based on my experience and my experience with couples. Beautiful. But that is in counseling. If a pastor wants to do more than that, then I think it requires extra learning. I do. I think it requires learning a little bit more about dealing with it. It's funny. Pastors are more than willing to do premarital counseling, but very few pastors just enter into addiction counseling. They're like, oh, no, I don't know if I have expertise for that. What's the difference? There's biblical passages about addiction. There is spiritualized themes that you could draw about addiction. A pastor might have experience with addicts, and yet they recognize that there is something they must kind of first learn before they're able to speak adequately to this population. And so I think some pastors think, well, because, marriage is such a Christian theme, and it's so biblically supported that I can just kind of speak from that place. But oftentimes, I don't think it's actually been helpful. Now, I'm not saying pastors can't do it. I'm saying I think that it requires them to learn something else. Like, I think it requires them to gain a little bit of knowledge on how to facilitate counseling type conversations, where it's not just you giving advice, it's you learning how to actively listen, how to listen for key phrases and key terms which indicate meaning beneath meaning. When you learn how to examine introspective themes, and when you learn how to facilitate conversation in that way, it becomes far different and far easier to pick up on those things. And then synthesizing it to biblical truth becomes a beautiful union of truth. Now, a pastor who's aware of that deficiency and references work or maybe they assign a worksheet or a book and they're working through the book with them, I think that that's awesome. I think that could be just as helpful as counseling. Do not get me wrong. But I know some pastors who have presented themselves as experts to this new young couple and not really listening to the couple. The couple's talking and the pastor is just consistently just telling them why they're wrong and how they need to live. And here's the thing, even if the pastor is right, they have not walked away having really internalized anything of that. They did not walk away actually helped. What they walked away being was told. And I think that there's a place for breaking down the Bible's view of marriage, and then there's a space for counseling. And my dream is to see those things merge in the church. Anyway, if you like this video, comment, subscribe, hit the little bell. Tell me what you thought of the video. If you are a pastor, share your opinion below on the video. If you've been counseled by a pastor before, share your opinion. Was it good? Was it bad? What do you think? I am not positing myself as an expert of all things. I am not saying pastors are inadequate or unable to learn these things. I'm just saying that I think that they could gain tremendous value from learning some of the techniques that counselors know and synthesize it with what I believe to be the most ultimate truth of all. Thank you again. You have a great day, and I will see you next time.